Swiss LGBTQ groups praise jail sentence for commentator who called journalist a, quote, fat lesbian. All right, so this drama is happening in Switzerland. So in Geneva, again, more from NBC News, quote, LGBT groups hailed the 60-day jail sentence a court in Switzerland gave to a writer and commentator for deriding a journalist as a, quote, fat lesbian, among other critical remarks. The court sentenced French-Swiss polemicist Alain Bonnet, who goes by Alain Soral, for the crimes of defamation, discrimination, and incitement to hatred on Monday. He was ordered to pay legal fees and fines totaling thousands of Swiss francs in addition to the time behind bars. Soral lashed out at Catherine Macherel, a journalist for Swiss newspapers Tribune de Genève and 24 Heures. Pardon the pronunciation on all of this, but doing my best, y'all. In a Facebook video 2 years ago, he called her a, quote, fat lesbian and said Macherel's work as a, quote, queer activist meant she was, quote, unhinged. Now, the insane twist to this story is that not just the government imprisoning somebody for saying something mean, an insane thing that would never happen here in the United States, thank God, because we have the First Amendment, but it's that LGBT activists who, of all people, should understand the importance of not criminalizing minority or unpopular perspectives or speech that other people hate, they're actually cheering this. This court decision is an important moment for justice and rights of LGBTQI people in Switzerland, Muriel Wager, the co-director of the lesbian activist group LOS, said in a statement. The conviction of Alain Soral is a strong signal that homophobic hatred cannot be tolerated in our society. All right, so there's so much to unpack here. I do want to start out by noting that this guy who's in trouble, this commentator, he is not my cup of tea, right? He's gotten in trouble in the past for denying the Holocaust. I think he is a shock jock, a polemicist. I don't know a ton about him, so, but I'm certainly not endorsing him in that I'm going to robustly defend his free speech, but I'm not endorsing him or his message. The second thing, I just have to ask, what exactly about what he said is the offensive part or the defamatory part? Because I looked up this woman and she does appear to be a lesbian, and the photos, like, I'm not trying to judge her or be harsh. You can't really tell from the photos, but she doesn't look particularly thin. So at the very least, the lesbian part, I think, is just a statement of fact, just calling her a lesbian. Like, I don't see why that's offensive. If somebody called me a stupid gay or an ugly gay or an unhinged gay, I'd take offense at the first part, but I wouldn't be taking offense at being called gay because I am. What if she is fat? I mean, then is he literally being imprisoned for stating a true fact? Where's the defamation? Also, isn't who's fat or not kind of inherently subjective? Regardless, though, none of that actually matters, because even if it's not true, even if it is mean, and it is mean, regardless, it's unkind to insult somebody's weight, it doesn't matter. It's still free speech. It's still insane and Orwellian to lock people up for mean words that hurt people's fifis. And this is not happening in Iran. This is not happening in Saudi Arabia under anti-blasphemy laws or other oppressive theocratic regimes. It's happening in a supposedly free Western nation in Switzerland. That's disturbing because we see stuff like this happen in the United Kingdom as well and across Europe, and the only reason it doesn't happen here is because we have the First Amendment. I promise you, progressives in this country would embrace this kind of anti-hate speech law if they could, but they just know they can't because of our First Amendment. But I actually want to engage with the substance here and point out why they should not have this kind of policy in Switzerland or anywhere else. Imprisoning people for saying mean words does not change their perspective. It doesn't help them see the light. In fact, it kind of makes them a martyr among their supporters. So rather than convince the people who maybe support this person, who maybe are anti-gay, this further pushes them into their narrative that it's us versus them and that they're on a team against the queer activists. It makes a martyr out of this seemingly kind of kooky commentator and allows him to be perceived as the victim by all of his supporters. There's also something of a Streisand effect. It's like, oh, this is the guy whose information and truth-telling is so radical the government wants to lock him up for telling you the truth. You're probably only going to make him more popular, folks, than if you just ignored him and let him rant to a live stream of 10 people somewhere on the fringes of the internet. But more broadly, in a free society, you must allow all ideas, good and bad, to be espoused, even mean ones, even ugly ones, because guess what? That's how we come to truth. That's how we find the truth. That's how we get to the best ideas over time, is through that give and take, that exchange, that back and forth, not by the government deciding one approved narrative of speech and throwing people in prison who violate it. And it's insane to me that the LGBT activists in Switzerland, or at least some of them, the ones quoted in this NBC article, are actually cheering this kind of thing, because they should know better. LGBT activists of all people should understand the importance of allowing fringe minority perspectives that the mainstream of society views as bad and wrong and immoral to still be aired. Because guess what? Just a few decades ago, all of their activism was viewed like that. And in many parts of the world, it still is. So do you want the government crushing and suppressing dissident minority views or not? Because you really can't have it both ways. You can't just have the good guys get allowed to speak and the bad guys not allowed to speak. Because guess what? That's subjective. And the people in power, the people in the government, will always have an agenda. They will always have personal biases. They will always have a bias towards the status quo. And so the future people who bring about change, who bring about revolution, who history ends up showing are right over time, will never get to make that progress if minority and dissident viewpoints are crushed by the state today. This whole thing is an insane saga. It's a really disturbing attack on free speech, and it's something we need to be on guard against it happening here or honestly anywhere. If you believe in free speech, it has to include hate speech, which is really just code for the speech that people hate.